why are companies automating? Well, there's three main areas that we see based on the research we've done and the conversations we have with organizations that are tackling this issue. The first one is asset costs. How can you reduce the storage costs? Maybe you've got, a few hundred boxes of paper invoices and associated documents stored somewhere that really aren't adding a lot of value. Getting access to the invoices and supporting documents can be tricky in that environment. So how do we improve the access to them so we don't have to dig through those boxes when something gets lost? And eliminating overall lost invoices is a big problem as well. The next item then is we look at processing costs. Can we reduce manual effort and duplicate data entry wherever possible? That could have a significant impact on your headcount. What if we want to increase productivity as volumes increase of invoices? Again, another area where headcount reduction might be possible. And then what if we want to look at how we can reduce late and duplicate payments and overall approval time, speed those up? So those are the focus of the processing costs area. And then last but not least would be management costs. Management oftentimes doesn't have visibility into the liability that's taking place on invoices that are in queue. There's no controls or reporting that are taking place on those invoices, and it sure would be nice to have that information at your fingertips. How do we ensure compliance and audit requirements? And last but not least, we want to make sure we improve vendor inquiries and relations. And we'll talk a little bit more about these as we move forward. So we're focused here on invoices, but really it's much, much more than invoices. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of unstructured content and disparate data to manage across the board. Canceled checks, purchase orders, credit memos, remittances, collection notices, expense reports, vendor management contracts, contacts, discount structures, all kinds of information outside of just the standard invoice. So let's talk now next about the automation stages and best practices that we see. Regardless of what anyone else will tell you, there's really no magic process automation that fits everyone. There's many point solutions out there that'll tell you that there is and that you need to follow their best and refined process, but that's really not accurate. Putting a technology solution before your business process requirements is like putting the cart before the horse. So there isn't an automation standard for everyone. There's lots of different variables involved here: cost, timing, priorities, existing processes, user preferences. All of those things need to be used to determine what's right for you at the right time. So based on our experience, we've summarized these most common high-level stages of automation, and we're going to walk through those here briefly. And so first and foremost would be stage one, where you've got invoices that are coming into multiple locations. They're being manually entered into your ERP system, probably late within the process. You're moving them around for approval. Oftentimes we'll see folks putting stamps on these paper documents to include their initials and GL codes. And then after the approval process is taking place, the information is entered manually into your ERP system and a check is written. And then maybe at the end of that process, the document is scanned for retrieval later. Building on that then is stage two, where now instead of having a decentralized process, we're bringing all of the invoices and corresponding pieces of information to one central location. We're going to scan those documents early on in the process so that now we can key the information off of an image. We might be doing some matching within our ERP system based on the content that we're extracting from the document, and then we're still pushing these documents manually through for approval. That might be using an email system where you're pushing them individually and then tracking them oftentimes in a Excel spreadsheet to understand where the information resides. Still having a problem with visibility into the process here and needs a little bit further automation. Stage three then builds on stage two, and now we're utilizing an automated workflow process that will look at the schedule of authority for the approval process and push them out with workflow for that approval, typically electronically and using email systems as well. We've got automated verification stages taking place here, and then if everything matches, When the documents come back along with their approvals, they're being automatically posted into the ERP system to be reviewed and then scheduled for payment. And then fourth, and again, not the least, is a further automation stage where after we've captured the documents early in the process, we're using technologies like optical character recognition and intelligent data capture to extract the header and footer information and further automating that extraction by grabbing the line items and comparing them to information that resides within the purchase order or requisition process and doing a three-way match possibly with the bill of lading that was delivered. If everything matches up perfectly or within a certain threshold of tolerance, we'll do straight through processing and automatically send that payment out for payment to the vendor. In addition, at stage 4, self-service portals are also typically available for those vendors to answer their own questions to understand where the invoice payment is. So at a high level, those are the 4 stages. We find that many of our customers will fall in between a couple of these stages, but this gives us a good framework for understanding of what those automation stages look like. Next, we're going to talk about the 5 most common best practices that we see here as well. So these are the guiding principles that you can think of for automation, and we'll start with early capture and process automation. The Accounts Payable Network completed a report on metrics and benchmarking practices, and 39% that responded to that survey report that medium automation, kind of stages 2 and 3, were important in their process. When we look at integration, 77% integrate directly with their ERP system, and we'll show you some examples of that here coming up in just a moment. Third then would be, how can we reduce or eliminate any manual data entry that's taking place. That's often found in stage 4, but in some of the other areas in stage 3 as well. Getting better visibility to the information to measure the performance of the system with reporting was critical in the 4th best practice here. And then how can we consolidate all of the information we need to make decisions into one area, so we can have efficient access to consolidated information from different applications. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper into these best practices as we move forward. Just as we discussed in the 4 stages of AP automation, early capture and process automation is the key to reducing costs and managing this unstructured content. We want to capture early within that process. We want to look for eliminating printing of invoices just to scan them later in the process. And we also want to look to eliminate manual routing time and expenses. That is really going to focus on minimizing lost documents overall. And then directly related to that is the centralized capture. That's been the trend for the past few years, and it helps reduce processing costs. And studies have found that approximately 90% of organizations are centralized, partially centralized, or they maintain some type of shared services center. So by capturing early, you can also gain a major efficiency utilizing workflow. If you can standardize your business rules, you can then automate the approval, exception handling, and schedule of authority. And furthermore, if you've captured your invoices early in the process, you can better manage workloads, especially when employees are on vacation or sick. And then last, but certainly not least, you gain an audit trail to have better visibility into who's accessed documents, and utilize that content for compliance. And then last is to improve overall processing speed and accuracy by capturing information and using process automation. Okay, so here's an example of what we're talking about. You want to capture early in this example using scanning with a system like OnBase that can then connect to your ERP system, key information off of the images, go back to an AP specialist, and utilize workflow for the approvals and exception handling with applications that organizations are most used to, like their ERP system, the Outlook integration, and maybe their mobile phones. So that would be a stage 3 early capture and process automation workflow design. But again, these are going to vary based on your specific needs. Next, we're going to talk about integration. It's really a huge performance advantage. So now I don't need to leave my ERP system to get access to the images and other data that I need to make a decision. So think about when you need to answer a question from a vendor about where their payment is. Wouldn't it be nice if you could find that information at your fingertips and answer the question immediately rather than trying to track down the answer in multiple systems or paper files and then having to call them back? Minimizing those callbacks is significant and giving the vendor lots of satisfaction too. So in addition, by integrating to your ERP, now you can minimize some of those other mundane system tasks, like moving invoices through the approval process. Let technology handle that with workflow processes, and then push those most important decisions to the people that need to make them. And so what does that look like? OnBase utilizes a technology called Application Enabler. That's the floating tile that you'll see here. That when I open up my ERP system, you can see immediately that I've got some documents available to support the information that's on this screen. So there's no need for me to go searching into another application for the information you need. It's right here tied to your ERP system, and it's going out to the content repository to find information related to it and telling you all the time, here's new content that you might find interesting. So if I click on that tile, it'll tell me I've got 5 documents. Here they are: the checks, a check, a packing slip, a purchase order, a purchase requisition e-form. Maybe I actually want to take a look at the actual invoice. I can click on that and pull up the invoice in an image window here and gain access to that content all from within my ERP system. So that type of integration that approach can also be extended to content on your vendor portal to further enable self-service. So now the vendor's not even calling you to find out where their payment is. They probably start here with the portal to understand and see a status dashboard of all of the invoices that they might have in process. And then last but not least, give them an opportunity to upload invoices here too electronically. So no longer do they need to print and mail or fax their invoices or send them to an email. Everything can be taken care of here from a self-service portal for vendors. So additionally, there's various options for email and mobile integrated access. If you're like me, I live in my email all day. So when my invoice approvals need to happen, they find me by being automatically sent to my inbox. I can then approve them without leaving Outlook, and that makes my life a lot easier and allows me to approve invoices a lot faster. So let's take a look at what that might look like. Here's your standard email client. In this case, it's Outlook. I receive an email notification that I have an invoice that needs my approval. I can open a scan of the invoice from here. So here's the invoice email that I got. I can click on it to open a scan of that to see the invoice if I want to. Again, I'm never leaving Outlook. If I like it, yep, this looks like what I ordered. I can approve it. As I click the approval button, a GL code form comes up, an electronic form that allows me to enter all the GL coding information and approve this invoice and go on with my day. Now, I never left Outlook, and it's a really powerful integration with the solution here. So what does that look like on my phone? Well, let's take a look what I have in my workflow queue. This is the OnBase mobile client. And again, if I'm doing invoice processing, I can click on my workflow. It'll show me that I've got a non-PO invoice here from Tulsa personnel that needs to be approved. I can click on that to see the keywords within the invoice date, the invoice amount, what's the vendor number, additional information here. Then if I wanted to, I can actually see the scan image if I'd like. So it looks good to me. Let's go ahead and approve that. I go ahead and click the approve button here. I'm going to code the invoice. And again, an e-form pops up allowing me to enter the GL coding all from within my phone. So now if someone's out of the office, they can approve invoices and other processes all from within their phone if they're traveling or Maybe they're on the beach somewhere and you've got some invoices that need to be approved. All of that can be extended to the technology that we're most used to. Okay, let's talk about the third best practice here, and it's reducing or eliminating manual entry. And the first thing we're going to do is talk about reducing data entry. So one thing that we see too often with companies is that they're scanning, but then they're keying the information off of that scanned document again and again. Maybe it's within their ERP system, maybe it's within a workflow process. But if we can capture that information early, now we're keying the information off of the image, not paper. And then second, by having that information in the system, we can invoke technology to leverage data sharing or data synchronization within applications. We can scrape information from one application to another and vice versa, so we can eliminate data entry that way. And in addition to that, it ensures that the data is got some continuity between application and greatly reduces the fat fingering process. So OnBase uses a technology called Application Enabler to do that. It's really a simplified process, and think of the stages of automation. We're at level 2 or level 3 right now. We can continue keying data into the ERP system. In this case, if we've got one piece of information, maybe the PO number, we can use that then to go into the ERP system, look up the PO information and scrape the information over, and then automatically pull that data out of the ERP system and index the values within the indexing panel of the application to manage the workflow process here as well. So minimizing the need to key all of these fields on the screen that you see within OnBase. So now let's focus on actually eliminating manual entry with optical character recognition. In a nutshell, if you're not familiar with OCR, the computer basically turns the picture, the image, into readable text and content that can be further extracted off of the document. So there's lots of different types of OCR. There's full text OCR that's going to read all of the data on the entire page. There's zonal OCR that'll use templates to identify a template format and then extract information based on that template. And these are typically really not that useful when we talk about invoice data capture because we're dealing with semi or unstructured documents where the data is in unpredictable locations. More typically, we utilize what's called intelligent optical character recognition. Not only are we capturing the vendor information from the header and the footer, we're capturing the PO number and the line item detail, which allows us to compare these results to the PO data in our ERP system or multiple ERP systems if you have more than one. Kind of like a shared services model that's servicing or serving invoice processing for multiple organizations. In a nutshell, OCR allows for further automation of the approval process down the road. So let's take a look what that looks like. Here I've got a standard invoice document. You can see it's got some structure to it. I would call this semi-structured. I start the OCR process to look for the vendor information, the line item detail, the invoice number, and then pull that information into a indexing panel here. From there, we're going to take that information and compare it to the multiple ERP systems. In this case, the PO number. It'll be located within the ERP system, and line item detail can be utilized to increase the effectiveness of this capture solution to do straight through processing. Okay, the next area we're going to focus on here is reporting. And simply put, you can't manage what you can't measure. So let's talk a little bit about reporting because it's really important. Here's an example of an invoice processing dashboard, and the key here is that dashboards bring visibility to the overall process to understand what your visibility or liability might look like for overall invoices. It's also going to help you identify bottlenecks that you might have to provide information that might reside in multiple systems. And it gives you all this information at your fingertips so that I have a snapshot view of everything that's going on. But if I want more detail, I can click on any of these tables to get more detail as needed to help me make better decisions throughout the organization. The fifth best practice, and that's really consolidate. Let's take a look at how we can consolidate the content and data. So all too common, we see information that resides within the ERP, but there's other data that's maintained in Excel spreadsheets, Access database, paper files, file folders. This is typically because either the ERP system is not set up to manage that additional information needed, like contacts and special terms or performance issues, or it's because different people are using different types of systems. The value of centralized consolidation is that all the information is accessible with a 360-degree view of the relationship. So here's an example of OnBase, the home page or personal page with some shortcuts to common vendor management access. Through point-and-click configuration options, the same OnBase shortcuts could easily be accessible through your website, your intranet, or your Outlook. So let's take a look at how we can bring all the information you need to make a decision into one location, and we call that case management. At the top, you'll see a familiar navigational toolbar to access related documents, the folders, the documents within those folders, different forms, history here. It's got that familiar user interface that you've used if you're in Microsoft applications. The key to case management is the ability to manage the non-document centric data. In this example, the vendor details. These tabs are flexible and they're based upon your specific needs. They provide an overview of maybe all the specific information you need on a vendor, the contract terms, performance ratings, notes, interactions, checklists, everything that the knowledge worker needs to manage the vendor relationship in one place. We call it the 360-degree view of everything they need to make that decision. So I've covered at a very high level a lot of content here. But ultimately, the best tools for you should be defined by your business process and staff interaction requirements. Next, let's talk about some of the tools that we showed today. And as you're likely aware, I've mentioned OnBase before. It's an enterprise content management solution, enterprise information management solution. It's a single platform that can be used to augment or enhance the management and processing of the procure to pay documents and the disparate data that resides within that process. There are hundreds of capabilities that can be applied across the organization and can scale to the whole enterprise, not just AP automation. So again, your process should be the focus. That's really what's going to define the requirements for the technology that you use. Remember, you've got 1.6 million choices, so you don't necessarily need to recreate the wheel here. Focus on planning to define your requirements and then make sure you pick a flexible solution. Consider a phased approach that might provide you value along the way as you bring enhancements to the users. Maybe you don't start at stage 3 or stage 4 within your AP automation process. Maybe you start at stage 2 that brings specific value and then build on that further as you go along. And then take a look at point and click configuration solutions over solutions that will require custom coding. In the long run, it's going to be a lot easier to support those types of solutions here. So remember the items that we mentioned in the beginning of the session. Hopefully today I introduced you to some new topics to help you meet those goals and objectives as you look to improve the performance of your organization. Again, my name's Mark Miller. Here's my contact information. I can be found at Naviant.com as well. And I appreciate your attentive time today. Thank you.